Every time we discover a new gadget, we invent a new technology, we are basically discovering one other connection that has always been there. Nobody invented the radio waves. They have always been there. We just simply discovered that they are there. The possibility of the internet. The invention is simply the device, but the possibility of two parts of the world being connected has always been there. If that possibility did not exist, how can you connect? How can you sit here? It is not a small phenomenon to be sitting in one corner of the earth, to be seeing what's happening on the other side exactly at the same moment when it is happening. It is because we've gotten used to all this, it just seems normal, but this isn't normal. In a physical world, this should freak you out. But in a mental realm, this is very common. In fact, the world is more and more heading towards realizing how much of a mind it is. So much so that we will have our own realities. Each individual will be living in their own realities. They can color the sky however they want. It's just a matter of getting there. That's about it. Each individual will be living in their own isolated imagined reality, which is not different from now. But the only difference is here we have shared places where we meet. That's objective reality for us. I can be lost in my thoughts. I can be lost in my imagination. But when I come and interact with you, the only way I can interact with you is by coming to that common place where we both agree on certain things. We both have to agree on the sunset to be able to talk about it. If I see the sunset as sunrise and if you see it as sunset, there's no conversation. More and more, individuals are becoming isolated. Now, this is a phenomenon that is hard to understand. We tend to think technology is connecting people. No, it's disconnecting people. It's making people more and more isolated. Now, where are they isolating themselves? How is it even possible to disconnect from reality so easily? Think about it. You can just sit in front of the computer and be playing some game and forget all about what's happening on the outside. For 2 hours, you can be in an alternate reality. This is possible only because we are living in the realm of the mind. In a physical world, this is impossible. In a physical world, that much of disconnection cannot be allowed. More and more, we are beginning to realize the nature of reality as something mental, not physical. And yet, because we are attributing all this to technology, and we are assuming that because we are so smart, we are creating all these technologies, we are missing the point altogether. Human beings are not that smart. We simply arrange things, we move things around. In that movement, we discover some inherent property of life that was hidden from us. And when we discover it, our ego just takes credit and says, I found it, I invented it, I must be really smart. Well, if existence does not want you to be smart, if the mind does not want you to discover something that is already there, how can you discover it? The possibility has to be there. This is something that easily skips our mind. When we look at all the things that we have created, it is so easy to forget that why is existence even allowing for discovery of such things? Why is there even a possibility? The possibility exists because we are living in a completely connected single realm where time, space, distance, movement are all merely perceptual. Reality is consciousness itself. Reality is aliveness itself. Reality is the mind itself. You can call it by any name. When you refer to it as consciousness, you're simply referring to the conscious part of it. When you refer to it as something vast, transcendental, you're simply referring to the non physical nature of it. All the qualities that you attribute to truth, that you attribute to this transcendental phenomenon, you are basically attributing to the mind. The moment we understand that we actually know nothing about this mind, if mind has nothing to do with the brain, then what do we know about the mind? Unless you have experientially gone deep into knowing what the mind is from inside, for you, mind is just an idea. So when you know nothing about the mind, then it is so easy to hold on to some theory, some concept, and believe that this is the mind. When you truly understand what the mind is, your approach to understanding it changes. Your approach to dealing with it changes. The last thing you would do is fight with the mind. The last thing you would do is control it. You would take a totally different approach. The approach would be of surrendering to the mind. The approach would be of letting go. The approach would be of watching with dispassion. Totally different way of dealing with something that has always been there and something that's going to always be there. How do you deal with something that you cannot get rid of? You accept it. You accept your thoughts, you accept your mind, you accept your body as a phenomenon that belongs to the present moment. Something you need not get rid of. In fact, this trying to get rid of, trying to control is what keeps you going back and forth between the past and the future. I should have, I should not have, I could have, I must have, I would have. All these things are ways of trying to control something you cannot control. Something has happened. A small part of it is your making, your doing. You could have done something there. You could have been a little more aware when that thing was happening. That is the only thing that's in your control. Apart from that, everything has just happened. Your whole life is a happening. And yet to look back at your life and say, I could have done this, I could have done that, I did not do this, it's just total waste of time. How much time is wasted in trying to go back and change our lives without realizing that we don't have much say in any of this? Even the most beautiful lives, even the life of a Buddha is a happening. It is not his making. It appears like it's his making because he's reached to the absolute pinnacle, the zenith of knowing. You automatically assume that, well, he's something special. He did all this by himself. Buddha's meditation was a happening. Buddha's leaving his home was a happening. His desire to know life was a happening. It was a part of the inbuilt, invisible design of life. He simply happened to watch it to its conclusion. The same learning process everybody goes through, he just took it all the way to the end. Every moment, when you learn something, you are learning exactly the way Buddha learned something. Same possibility, same mind, same realization. But when you're learning, you're so busy, you're so distracted that there's vast gap between one moment of learning and another moment of learning. When a person is sitting and meditating, the gap is reduced. You're learning more things about the mind, more things about the body in quick succession. But still, that is a happening. If you reflect on your life, you will see how little of what you recognize as your life is your making. It's all a happening. Now, this is not to say that, oh, everything is a happening. Let me not control anything. Let me just give up. Well, giving up is also a happening if you accept that. Happening is such a deep, such a transcendental phenomenon that even when you are choosing your way of life, to accept that as a happening is wisdom. You will be closer to truth when you say that my life is meticulous, it is planned, it is structured, but it is all a happening. This is the kind of life that is happening to me. Why is it so hard to accept it? Because the ego will not allow it. Because if it's all a happening, then what are you doing? This credit taking part is the problem. Otherwise, it is not that hard to see the nature of reality is more mental than physical. We are always lost in thoughts. There are always some dreams. There is not a single moment of life when there is no dream. With eyes open, you're dreaming. With eyes closed, you're dreaming. And how can a dream happen without a realm allowing it to happen? When something is so fundamental, when physicality is simply a matter of recognizing something as physical, in your dreams, there is nothing physical. Your body is asleep, and yet in your dreams, you're doing everything you do in the real world. There's not one thing that you cannot do in your dream, except for meditation, because meditation is not a doing. Everything you do in your dream that you do on the outside. And yet, we assume that life is physical. It's because we don't spend enough time with life. We don't spend enough time with the present moment, with the nature of reality. We simply live in the world of abstract concepts. And concepts that are assumed to be true just because they come from some authority. For a religious mind, religious scriptures are the authority. Jesus is the authority. Buddha is the authority. For a scientific mind, a person who came up with one spectacular theory is the authority. To be scientifically minded is not that easy. You have to fight with the known. You have to be skeptical of everything that is given to you on the platter. An understanding of life that is neatly arranged and given to you for your consumption is false understanding. Because it is not yours. It might be good, somebody likes it, but it will not nourish you. The food of truth has to be discovered by the individual uniquely. You have to go on a journey and find it for yourself. Who is God? What is religion? What is science? What is meditation? What is spirituality? There are no answers to these questions in books or in someone's teachings. You have to find answers to these questions inside. You have to be deeply skeptical of everything. A skeptical mind is a mind of great possibilities. A believing mind is a closed mind. It is infinitely better to be skeptical and keep on inquiring into the nature of reality. Someday, things will just fall into place. You will know, oh, this is what has been happening. It will happen intuitively. The ultimate knowledge of the mind will simply hit you. You don't have to do anything. You just have to be closer to the mind, closer to the phenomenon of the mind. Whatever that is happening in the present moment, if you stay with it, it is only a matter of time before an insight will just happen.